Welcome back to the Wizard's Lair podcast, where we break down every episode of Wizards of Waverly Place. This is episode 6. I'm Daphne, and I'm with my husband, Xander. Today we are breaking down season 1, episode 6, called You Can't Always Get What You Carpet.
Yes, thank you everybody. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. Please accept our greetings and our apologies, because it has been so long since we've seen you.
So long.
But maybe we can just make Riri everything. We can go back and it'll all feel like, no, just kidding. Sorry for taking so long getting episodes out. We've been really busy, but we're very excited to get back to it. We just watched episode 6, so it's fresh in our minds. We're ready to talk about it. Hopefully you're joining along with us, not just watching the show back with us, but also following on Instagram at The Wizard's Lair. And you can also subscribe here on YouTube. We're just keeping it simple. We're only uploading things to YouTube. We're not going to worry about over-encumbering you with so many different podcast channels, outlets, blah, blah, blah. So let's get down to it. This episode first aired November 10th, 2007. And like you said, it's called You Can't Always Get What You Carpet, which is a fun little reference to the Rolling Stones song,
Yes.
You Can't Always Get What You Want. That's a fun little piece of trivia, but yet a weird name. You can't always get what you carpet.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
It does not roll off the tongue.
It does not roll off the tongue.
Or make sense.
No.
Carpet is not a verb.
No, you're absolutely right. But I guess it's that reason that it sticks in your head, perhaps.
Yeah, I guess so.
But anyway, so should we give a brief overview of what this episode is and what it's about?
Yes. So the kind of main plot that we're focusing on, obviously, is the flying carpet. But the subplot, which is what gets us there, is the kids are redecorating their rooms. And I guess Jerry gives Alex permission to go down to the basement and get whatever she wants from there. And she gets a rug that she thinks is just a rug. And turns out quickly, or she realizes quickly that it is a magic carpet. So the whole thing is Jerry giving her lessons and kind of the struggle and classic parent and child driving lessons dynamic that we have. But we also have, some shenanigans from Justin and Max, as always, as they redecorate their rooms as well. So it's a very fun episode. What's interesting, and we'll talk about this more throughout, I'm sure, but even though this is episode 6, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was the first episode they filmed, right?
Correct.
That's what I thought, and you can kind of tell, like, it's a good episode, but I feel like, the episodes leading up to this, we had started to really establish characters, and they had already started to kind of grow into their characteristics and stuff, whereas this one, as much as I still enjoy it, definitely feels like early days, Yeah. I don't know if you got that vibe as well, but it feels like some of the characters are a little different than they end up being later on.
Yeah, it's something that I don't think I ever really realized that this was the first one that was filmed. I did not know that until maybe a few years ago. I just always kind of assumed that they were all...
Yeah, like filmed in order.
Filmed in order, or at least relatively. So it never really crossed my mind. But yeah, I do agree with you. Going back and watching and having that in your mind and kind of knowing that, it does stand out a little bit, where you're kind of seeing almost like a generic family dynamic as opposed to the Russo dynamic.
Yes, it's
which
not
is a little
as
bit
nuanced
different.
Yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I wonder how much of a time difference there was between the filming of this episode and whatever else, or whatever the second episode would have been. I'm sure I knew at one point, but now I can't even think of what the second one that was filmed was. Maybe it was the Crazy 10-Minute Sale.
I think maybe it was.
I'm not sure.
I want to say, because we've been kind of watching here and there Jennifer Stone and David DeLuise's podcast, and I believe they said that Crazy 10-Minute Sale was the next one, because Harper is not in this episode, in the Magic Carpet one. And I feel like she said the first one she filmed was Crazy 10-Minute Sale, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But this episode does not really feature anyone other than the Russos. We don't go to school at all.
Nope.
In fact, I don't think we see a single other character other than the family, do we?
Nope.
No, that's an interesting thing, because in all our previous episodes, we've talked about whatever actor is featured as a side character, but no, it's just the Russos in this one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
But yeah, the dynamic is a little different. I find it interesting that kind of the main The main thing of this episode is Alex and Jerry's dynamic of, you know, her being his little princess and him not wanting her to grow up and, like, be independent and stuff. And she is just, like, so distraught when she thinks he's mad at her and just wants to be in his good graces and stuff, which is really interesting considering Alex in most episodes, and especially going forward, is very much a rebel and will break the rules with no care for Jerry's feelings.
Yes, at the same time, though, it's almost like she's doing this because she's kind of like low-key proving to Max and Justin that she can get whatever she wants, whenever she wants, however she wants.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. Usually we see her kind of conniving and scheming
in
a more mischievous way, whereas this one's more like she's manipulating him by, like, sucking up to him and using the puppy dog face. And all
right. That stuff is still very Alex, but there were, like, genuine moments of her, like, confiding in Justin even, like, being really upset that Jerry was mad at her after their first run.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting to me. And the fact that they kind of, like, were comforting each other and that he, like, later helps her with really no ulterior motive was also interesting as well.
That was.
Because usually he kind of just lets her crash and burn. But
for sure.
They had some sweet moments in this episode.
Yeah, so we can kind of start from the beginning because that's where we kind of... There's actually no spells in this episode.
Oh, you're right.
That was kind of the thing that I was noticing as well, is that if this was the first episode, they chose not to include any spells in it, which I thought was interesting. And again, they kind of went the cliche route with the magic carpet.
Right. That's really the only piece of magic we see, right?
I mean, they mentioned the magic broom.
Yes.
But we don't really see that. So yeah, the magic carpet is really the main magical focus of this episode. And like you said, she goes into the basement, she's digging around for different things that she can bring up into her room. And she finds this rug, and interestingly enough, out of nowhere, it just starts levitating as she's, I think, combing her wall.
Yes, and I really wanted to mention the iconic pink fur wall that Alex has. I thought it was so cool back in the day. It's kind of terrible, but it's iconic and I love it.
It's very, very 07.
Yeah, it's very this era of Disney Channel because it even feels very like Hannah Montana to me almost.
It feels... Yeah, Hannah Montana, but also like Disney's version of like punk rock.
Yes.
Where it's like
edgy.
It has to be edgy, it has to be different, it has to be unique, which is fine.
Right.
That's fine. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's very 07 and it's very iconic, but when you look at it now, you're like, really?
Yeah.
Like, practically speaking, that would be a nightmare.
Yeah, and she was, like you said, she was literally brushing it, which is when we find out that rug is a magic carpet.
That's so funny. And yeah, so I don't even know how the rug activates, but somehow she must have started her up or did something because it revs up and she ends up flying up in the air. And she crashes and Jerry comes in and kind of reveals to her that it's the magic carpet and she really wants to take lessons, but the whole thing, I guess, is kind of that Jerry doesn't think that she's old enough or doesn't want her to be old enough.
Right.
It's kind of his way of like making sure that she stays a child and, you know, daddy's little girl, if you will. And so he's like, no, I taught Justin, but I won't teach you.
Yeah,
that's where things change a little bit, because once she finds out that Justin has learned, but she hasn't, again, she just naturally wants to not only one-up Justin or get on the same plane as Justin, but she wants to prove that she can get her way.
Right.
And suck up to daddy. And of course it works. You know, it works. He tries for a minute. Remember when he was like, get away from me, don't you? Because he knows as soon as she like lays a hand.
Right. She tried to hug him and he was like, nope.
He said, But eventually in the hallway she does like put a hand on his shoulder and says, Daddy, please. And he's like, okay, fine.
Start in the morning.
That's exactly when the whole thing starts. And yeah, so it seems to go pretty well at first. Almost like how a parent would teach their daughter or their son how to drive, right? Yeah. But that's just too normal for wizards. That has to be a magic carpet.
Right. But it's funny though, because the dynamic was so relatable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was.
Because I feel like that's most people's experience. I know it's definitely mine of learning to drive with a parent, and everyone in the situation is well-meaning, but the parents get stressed. Because I mean, as an adult now, I can imagine how stressful it must be to be in the passenger seat when a teenager, like a 15 or 16-year-old, is driving you for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, that is really scary. So I understand why they get stressed. But they get stressed and they usually get mad and there's a lot of yelling. And so that was a funny, relatable thing, but with a magic twist. I love it.
I was terrified when I was learning how to drive.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for some reason, and I do it often where if I get in my head enough, I can just, like, ruin the whole thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, when I was learning how to drive, I was like, oh, no, there's no way I'm going to be able to learn how to drive. I had to learn all these nuances and understand all the laws and not drive too fast, don't drive too slow.
Right.
Make sure I'm signaling and, like, how do you work your lights and the wiper. And it is a lot if you're, again, you're 15, you're just learning, so I was terrified. So I can't imagine learning how to drive or ride a magic carpet
in the sky.
Up in the sky.
Can we also talk about how this carpet is like kind of like a car and how Jerry works on it?
Yes, he needs to tune it up.
Yeah, well, he has like the hood popped, if you will,
Quote,
in air
unquote.
quotes. But it's really just like a little opening in the carpet when they have it out on the terrace. And it looks like a car.
And it sounds like it too. You hear the little...
Like, even though it's just a flat thing, underneath, you can see, like...
smoke's coming out.
Yeah, and you can see metal stuff. Like, it looks like a car.
All the innards.
So
and
funny. It's
hilarious. He's got, like, a little rag. He's like, every 3,000 miles, you gotta, like, vacuum it. Because if not, the filter gets, like, blah, 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 blah.
And she was like, I'll take it to you. Okay.
And that was hilarious, too. That's relatable, too. It's like, I'll just take it to mom and dad whenever it's done, or whenever I need to, and let them take care of it.
Every
which was
how
hilarious.
Many miles?
He said 3,000, which is about 3, the same.
Okay.
Which is the same for a vehicle.
Right.
Every 3,000 miles, you want to
oil
get
change.
Either your oil change, your tires, all that
so
stuff.
Funny.
So yeah, you're right. It's very, very comparable and very, very relatable to learning how to drive, which is kind of cool. I mean, I guess when I think about it, that being a first episode, it's a nice kickoff because you're right. It is a very relatable family dynamic.
Yeah, and it's a nice way to ease you into the wizarding world, if you will.
Good point. Good point.
Because we're starting out with a very human, relatable story, but just with a slight change, a slight magical twist. But the rest of the story is very normal family. I mean, the whole room decorating thing. It was very much like a regular family. Speaking of which, just a couple of funny Justin things from this episode. His whole shtick in this episode is that he wants to be called J-Man as his new nickname, so that was really funny. But he also wants his room to be more manly because he's had to take the girly, flowery wallpaper that Alex didn't want. So he keeps adding all this random stuff from the basement to his room. And one of those things, well, this isn't from the basement, but one of the things he puts up to try and be, more like a guy's room is a Tears of Blood poster, which we always point out because we think it's so cool and funny that they have kind of a in-universe metal band that Justin's a fan of. So I think it's our first time seeing a photo of them, though, right?
I think it's our first and only time.
Oh, really?
So it's kind of funny because, yeah, you're right. So this technically would have been the first time we ever hear about him if this was the first episode.
Order, yeah.
But, of course, it was not. And there was an episode before, the name of which is escaping me. It's the one with Miranda.
Yeah, no,
it's the one with Make Riri Time Riri. And I think, I don't know, I could be wrong. But anyway, there's an episode that mentions Tears of Blood. And yeah, this time we get a bit closer look. We have an actual photo of them, which, when you look at it, they look like almost like an 80s metal band.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering, I think in the last episode we talked about Tears of Blood, I was wondering what kind of metal band they were. If it was like an 80s band, a hard rock band, if it was like a death metal band or a screamo band or whatever it was. And it looks like, from the looks of their photo, that the band themselves looks like an 80s band. And then when you look at the font of the band itself, Tears of Blood, it's a direct, it's the same font as Iron Maiden.
Oh.
And anybody who knows Iron Maiden, knows that they're one of the biggest metal bands of all time.
Yeah.
They're still around to this day, so that logo, that type is, very recognizable. And so I think it's interesting that Tears of Blood uses that. So maybe they're a reference. I wish I was a little bit more knowledgeable I wish I had more knowledge on Iron Maiden, because I don't know if Tears of Blood is like a song of Iron Maiden's, or if it references a song of theirs, if it's close to being a song name or something. But either way, there is a couple nice allusions to either Iron Maiden or just 80s metal at large.
Yeah, and I think that it probably is a direct reference, because, in the very first episode, we had a reference to a rock band with Edgebano Utusis. So, like, we know that, like, a lot of these writers and creators of the show are music fans and rock fans, so I bet it's an intentional Iron Maiden.
There's a Def Leppard. There's a spell that uses Def Leppard in it. At one point.
I forgot about that one.
And then I think Alex or Jerry makes a Billy Joel reference.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. The writers are definitely in on rock and roll.
That's good
but
stuff.
Kind of makes me wonder if Tears of Blood is an '80s band that is still around, kind of like Iron Maiden. You know, they started in the I think Iron Maiden's actually way older than that. But we just think of Iron Maiden as an '80s band because of.
That's when they were huge.
Yeah, Run to the Hills. I wonder if Tears of Blood is an actual 80s band that has just been around for a long time and then Justin has learned about them.
Yeah.
Or if...
Doesn't he go to see them in an episode?
He thinks he is.
Oh.
He thinks he is, but he's actually babysitting for the girl he thinks he's going with.
Yeah, that's a rough
in true
one.
Justin fashion.
That's a rough
True Justin fashion. But anyway, so yeah, or maybe it's... like Steel Panther, where it's a band that looks like they're an 80s band.
Right, but
they're
is modern.
A more modern band.
Yeah.
And they're just alluding to that era, who actually knows. But yes, Tears of Blood. I just remembered that episode was called New Employee. That was the episode that Justin mentions, Tears of Blood.
Yep.
I don't think it's in the episode with Miranda at all. I think the next time we hear about Tears of Blood, Miranda's involved.
I was going to say, I remember her being present for that discussion.
I don't know. Now, see, I'm thinking I'm having conflicted thoughts because I think the girl that he mentions it to is blonde.
Yeah, that's not Miranda.
Not Miranda.
No,
Who knows?
Definitely not.
I guess we'll just wait and see. We think we know what we're talking about, but I don't think we do. Not enough, at least.
Speaking of bands, though, while we're on...
Oh, yeah.
While we're on that, you noticed a really funny thing when Alex was in her room...
Yeah.
Decorating and everything. The radio was on, and what is it that the guy said?
Yeah, I've never caught this before, and
we had to turn it up to hear what he was saying.
I usually listen and catch this kind of stuff because I'm always looking for background noises and background, stuff like that, and I'm always looking and listening for things that the camera doesn't want you to or wouldn't think you're supposed to. So I'm listening to Alex as she's in her room, and the radio says, "Up next." At number 4, which previously was at number 6, by the band Spontaneous Bling. The song's called "Aw Yeah."
Aw Yeah.
And I said, wait a minute, run that back. And I was like, so the group name is Spontaneous Bling.
Spontaneous Bling. What a great band name.
And the song, yeah, that's a pretty good one. Never heard of that or anything like it. And the song name is "Aw Yeah."
I wish we could have heard the song.
Well, it must be pretty fire because, again, it was at number 6, but now it's at number 4.
Right,
so
climbing.
Must be a hot track. It is climbing the charts quick.
I love the little details like that because somebody thought of that and put that in there, but it's just supposed to be the background.
Yeah, somebody had to record that bit.
Yeah.
That was going to be used.
So
Who knows?
true.
Who knows who that was? But yes, and then just real quickly because we're on this music thing. So not only do we hear about Tears of Blood and Spontaneous Bling, but we find out from Theresa that she at one point used to be in an all-girl mariachi band.
I love it.
I forget the name. She did say the name.
Oh, she did. I missed that.
The Las something. My Spanish is poor, so I don't remember the name. But I thought that was kind of interesting that Theresa was in an all-girl mariachi band. One of the things that makes it out of the basement, along with
I think Justin brings it up.
Yeah, along with the rug is the guitar.
And also...
And the baseball glove chair.
Yes, the baseball glove chair. I love that.
So many things are being unearthed.
Yes, and it's so funny because it's all stuff that Jerry and Theresa don't want each other to have. And so...
Yes.
And so their dynamic in this episode is really funny, too.
You know what,
because they're kind of being passive-aggressive, but not actually really addressing it. It's
that's
hilarious.
a really good point because that's also very kind of relatable.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I mean, I don't know if you and I relate this way, but like,
no,
but just have like where one of us has something that the other doesn't really like, but we kind of put up with it for the other one.
But then later you like hide it in the basement. Like,
yeah,
I feel like that is a very real world relatable thing.
Yeah, where people are just constantly like, you put something somewhere and you forget about it for so long, and then you're just really excited about it again.
Well, because no offense, Theresa is not good at the guitar.
No, and the baseball glove is ugly. I can't even believe
hideous.
Justin wanted it in his.
They're both right. All of these things are bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, the mariachi band thing was really amusing. I love Theresa.
Yeah, so Justin has the Tears of Blood poster, and he also puts up the headless, or the head of a boar.
Oh, yeah. It's
right,
gross.
and he calls it, what, Boris? Is that his name?
I think so, yeah.
Loses an eye.
Yeah.
Gotta get an eye patch for it.
Ugh.
Got the tiki on the wall.
Well, he ends up being terrified of all this stuff, too.
That's the best part.
That is the best part.
He says, I sound like a baby in there. It's like, yeah, right, dude. You're in there, like, under your covers, freaking out.
Right, like, can't sleep, staring at everything.
Hilarious. Totally ironic. But, I mean, yeah, that is the way it goes. Good stuff. Okay, so kind of going back to the main plot, we were talking about Jerry giving Alex flying lessons, and what happens is, I'm not really sure what happens, but something goes wrong. I mean, do you know what happened?
I don't know if it was one particular thing, but he is so stressed and anxious that he's kind of yelling at her, and that...
Oh, and she doesn't deal with it very well.
And she does not deal with it well, and which, again, relatable, parent-child dynamic while learning to drive, but... the yelling makes her worse, which makes him yell more, and it just does not go well. They're not talking to each other when they get back. It's rough.
Yeah, and you know what? To be honest, that was so, I thought, very immature of Jerry.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I could see Alex, a 15-year-old teenage girl, acting like that.
Well, yeah,
but I can't expect a grown man, a father, acting like the way he did. She tried to do what? She tried to, like, do everything she could to, apologize or say she was sorry.
Right, yeah.
Or, turn over a new leaf or whatever.
Yeah,
she said, I'm going to make him breakfast for dinner. That's his favorite thing. I'm going to go and get his favorite, what was it, some kind of CD? I don't even know what it was. But there was some dessert.
Big ziti, maybe?
Something like that, yeah. She did everything she could to try and make the evening perfect. And he says, thank you, Theresa.
Yeah, and then he says he's going to go eat his dinner on the terrace.
Alone.
Like, he won't even... And then she tries to go with him. He won't let
her. He's like, alone. Yeah. And it's like, dude, get over yourself. Like, it's funny because I love Jerry, and I know it's all just writing, but, yeah, I just can't imagine Jerry acting like that. Like, you're supposed to be the dad. Like, yes, right. Even though things were tense and... you were anxious and you don't want your girl to grow up. It's like, you need to accept, A, that she is, and B, you need to, like, I guess, respond appropriately to her gestures.
Well, and Theresa.
And again, that's the whole thing of the episode, is them getting over that. But just in the moment, I was like, Jerry, I can't believe you, bro.
I know. And Theresa's really the one that helps him see that. Like, she tells him, like, is it really that it was that bad, or do you just not? You just don't want her to grow up. Yeah. You're not ready. And
is she the problem, or are you the problem?
Right. And that helped him realize that he was the problem. But overnight, I think after everybody's asleep, Justin comes into Alex's room and actually offers to help, which was interesting.
Yep.
He offers to kind of give her some secret lessons so that she'll already be comfortable and better next time she goes out with Jerry, and hopefully it'll go better. So they kind of sneak out for a little late night carpet driving lesson.
Carpet flying, yeah.
Yes, yeah, and it goes really well. One thing I thought was really funny from that scene is when they're, just flying through the sky and there's a stoplight in the sky.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, all right.
It was so funny, though. That
was pretty silly.
I love the show that doesn't take itself too seriously. Because they were like, they had to stop, and then the birds went by.
Yeah.
It was their right of way. It was
and
so funny.
I know we're jumping the gun a little bit, and I feel like I know the answer, but we have to talk about it, because anybody who's watching this show knows that we're always calculating the exposures of magic.
Oh, yeah.
Just that, not that, but I'm thinking logistically here. They are on a flying carpet, up in the sky.
Yeah.
At times yelling and screaming. If you're down below walking on the sidewalk or working in an office building or anything like that, and you look up or out the window, you're going to see people on a magic carpet flying. Apparently more than one, because Jerry was talking about how it's really easy to get confused in a cloud.
Clouds, yeah.
And you get turned around, you don't know which way is up or down, and boom, crash. Alex says, what are you going to crash into? And he says, another wizard on a magic carpet going the other way.
Right.
So you think about all these, I guess, quote-unquote wizards up in the air. And all these magical stoplights that supposedly exist. And I'm thinking, man, that's got to be some kind of exposure. But there was no...
Yeah, I mean, it was
there was no explicit, like...
It's... Yeah, I guess you could argue it's like, they try and go late at night. But you probably could still see...
There's the baseball thing where the baseball went up.
The Mets game.
And it hit Justin.
I also wonder, which, I mean, I don't think they ever specifically say this, but... it being the magical world, I wonder if maybe regular people can't see.
Maybe
the magic carpet and the stoplight and everything is invisible to anybody who's not magic. I don't know.
Yeah, there has to be something.
Just
and of course,
trying to find a reasonable explanation.
And again, nobody was thinking about this in the writing room.
Of course not.
They were thinking,
it's a Disney Channel show, not Harry Potter.
How do we entertain 10-year-olds? And then, of course, now those 10-year-olds are in our 20s and we're trying to break this stuff down as if it's Harry Potter.
But I like putting
that's what's fun.
Well, and I like putting Harry Potter logic to wizards.
Absolutely, me too.
Because a lot of times you can explain things that shouldn't be able to be explained.
Absolutely. So Justin comes to the rescue and he says, "Hey, look, I know it's tough. He says it was tough for me learning from Dad.
He did.
I can't imagine Daddy's little princess. So
that was nice of him.
Why don't we go together and try and give you some lessons?" And so that was very nice of Justin. It actually goes really, really well. So well that the next time Alex goes up with Jerry, everything goes so smoothly. Yeah. Jerry's so proud and excited and can't believe how
and he
how
went
far
into
she's
that
come.
in a better place too, because
absolutely.
he had already had that discussion with Theresa and kind of realized that he was being irrational and ridiculous. So yeah, it just went really well, and turns out she's not that bad of a driver.
Yeah,
Flyer, I guess.
And one of the things I was thinking of during this episode was the longer the episode kept going on, I was like, wow, you know what? I think they're going to get away with this, Alex and Justin.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of one of those things where the two teens sneak out and think that they're not going to get caught. They think that they have all their bases covered.
Right.
And then come to find out parents knew all along and they bust them, they get in trouble and plans foiled. That actually didn't happen. And I was thinking, I think they're going to get away with it until Jerry came in and he said, "Hey, I don't know what you did, but thanks." Justin's like, "What are you talking about? You didn't do nothing." He goes, "Really? Because I was watching the Mets game and the ball went up and it never came down. You have something to do with that?"
Funny.
And Justin, what does he do? Dude, it was so funny.
Oh, it was so funny.
He looks at Jerry and goes like, no, I'm good. Tries to run away and runs smack into the wall.
Well,
he takes off full run but only gets 2 feet.
Because he's trying to go through the swinging door to the kitchen, which if you just walk through it, it opens. It's that kind of door. And so that's what he was aiming for.
Yes.
But he was about 2 feet to the left and just walked directly into the wall.
Justin was aiming for the swinging door and hit the wall, but David Henry, the actor, I can tell, was doing that on purpose.
Of course,
sometimes you can tell, when things happen, or happy accidents.
Right. No,
but that was some good comedic acting from David Henry.
Good, physical comedy for sure.
Perhaps it was some good directing from the directors, but whatever it was perfect.
Sure, we don't always mention the director, but I'm pretty sure it was Fred Savage that directed this episode. And
was it really?
He did a lot of them.
Wow.
And I remember even Jennifer Stone saying on their podcast how great of a director he was and how good he was with everybody.
Wow, for sure. Yeah, good call.
So that's a fun fact, too. Maybe we need to start researching the directors of each episode, too. That'd be cool.
Absolutely.
Because
Boom, you're right here. Writer, writer, Peter Murrieta, director, Fred Savage.
Yep. Dream team right there.
That's awesome. Good call on that. So yeah, that's pretty much where the episode ends. Of course, Jerry tries to, convict Justin, and he's like, "Nah, I'm good. That's not how it ends." And it ends on kind of a funny note.
Well, and he wasn't mad about it. Even though he figured it out, he was still grateful. I think he trusts Justin enough, and he saw that the results were good, and I think he was just grateful for his help and grateful that he was, wanting to help out his sister. So I thought that was nice that he didn't bust them and get them in trouble for that.
Yeah, and we were talking about the family dynamic earlier, and one other dynamic I like about this episode is the brother-sister dynamic between Alex and Justin.
Yeah.
Because usually in these episodes and in most television and movies, it's always they're enemies. One's always against the other.
Right.
One's trying to always either outdo the other one or bring the other one down, prank them, or harm them, or make fun of them, whatever it is. But in this episode, Justin goes seriously out of his way.
Yeah.
To be like, "Hey, I'm going to help you and do this for you." And
he didn't have to do that.
And Alex goes, "Well, what's in it for me?" And he's like, "Why is the guy be something in for me?" And it's like, "Because I'm your sister." And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to do something nice for me one day, maybe you'll do it."
Yeah.
And she goes, "How about don't brush your teeth?"
Right.
It's not toothpaste.
Well, because they've been talking a minute before about how...
Which is pretty fun.
About how Max and Alex will sometimes prank Justin. And he was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Never mind." So that was good that she owned up to one of them.
But I think this is one of the... I'm sure there are many more in the future because there are some really good, nice, tender, sibling moments.
Yeah, of course.
In this show. But this one was, I think, one of the first real tastes of that.
Definitely.
I'm sure there have been a few so far. That's kind of, well, no, I mean, so far we've seen Justin and Max trying to get Alex caught with the pocket elf.
Yeah.
You know, and causing the whole ruckus at Medium Roar.
It's been mostly that vibe.
There's a
so
lot
far.
of
So
lot
this
of back
was a
and
nice,
forth. You know,
nice little moment, and I think, and I'm wondering if maybe after having filmed a bunch of episodes, like I wonder if this was supposed to be the first episode, but then after filming a few more and like really figuring out who these characters were and the dynamic, if they chose to rearrange them, because they didn't feel like this as a first episode really depicted the characters accurately enough.
Yeah.
Because I mean it does, and it shows a certain side of them, but you know, most of the show we are going to get more rivalry sibling dynamic, so it is not a super accurate depiction of their relationship. So I think maybe that's why they chose to put it later. That way, once you've already established that they like to pick on each other and get each other caught for things, you see that. But sometimes they have tender moments like this. So I wonder if that's why they chose to reorder the episodes like that.
Yeah, interesting. Good observation. And also, speaking of dynamic and family dynamics, this one is kind of a random one, but I just kind of noticed that when Justin is trying to quote-unquote man up his room by adding all these different things to cover up his wallpaper, he ends up being too afraid of the boar head to keep it, the stuffed head, and gives it to Max.
Right.
And Max takes it. And,
he loves it.
And of course, Theresa wants him to get rid of it because it's ugly, but lets him keep the eye. And I was thinking that's like a really good example of like a hand-me-down, if you will.
Yeah.
Where in families, either clothes or toys or whatever it is, gets handed down from one someone to the next, and Justin finds this item, doesn't like it, gives it to Max, it becomes a hand-me-down.
Yep, you're right.
And it's just
another
kind of
relatable
one more
family
small.
thing.
That was a little bit smaller, but it is kind of inserted in there.
Good catch.
So one more thing to talk about before we get to our favorite quote. I wanted to mention this, or ask this rather. So here's a question for you. We talked about how this was the first episode filmed, but 6th episode aired.
Right.
Comparing this episode to Crazy 10-Minute Sale, which one do you feel like makes a better first episode? The one that we got, or the one that was actually first filmed?
That's a very good question.
If this had been the first episode, do you think you would have been as drawn to the show? Do you think this one is a stronger pilot, or is it something that you not even just think about?
That's a good question. I think, kind of like what I was saying a minute ago about why they might have chose to put this one later, I think I'm happier with 10-Minute Sale. First of all, we get to see an actual spell in action in Crazy 10-Minute Sale. We get Harper. I don't like that Harper's not in this episode because she's so important to this show.
True.
So no, I think I'm happy with the decision they made. I mean, this is a great episode, and I think I probably still would have been drawn in by it. But I do think that Crazy 10-Minute Sale is a more accurate depiction of these characters and lets us see more magic. So that's still
totally
my preference.
Agree.
You agree?
100%. And I think you said it. Yeah, I kind of forgot that you already kind of touched on it before. But no, you're absolutely right. I can kind of see why they would have maybe rearranged the episodes. Crazy 10-Minute Sale for me is absolutely, maybe it's just because it already is the opening episode. And it was the first episode that I ever saw.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just, I'm biased towards that. But no, I think you're absolutely right. The fact that we see more magic, more spells, it's a little bit less generic or cliche than just a magic broom or a magic flying carpet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's an actual spell being used.
Like a unique spell to this show. Not like some magical artifact that we already know about.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you hit it nail on the head as far as the dynamic. The comedy in that episode, too, seemed to be just a little bit more,
Agreed.
a little bit quicker.
Agreed.
Plus, not to mention, this might seem like a small thing to everybody else, but that episode also had Amanda in it for the first time.
You're right.
And
I always forget she's in the very first episode.
And that kind of starts a trope. I mean, that's like a thing that reoccurs. We've seen, this is our 6th episode that we've done. She's been in like at least 3.
I think 3.
That's half of them so far.
Yeah.
Now, that's not going to be that way in the future, but it's already
but she does keep coming back.
It establishes that sort of like running
recurring
joke.
Shtick, yeah.
That recurring shtick right from the get-go.
Yeah.
It also establishes a lot of the sibling rivalry and some of the, the classic Russo undermining that we'll see it very much more in season 2.
Yeah.
Once we get about a third of the way through season 2, that will really kick in. But this is, again, a good taste, or at least 10 Minute Sale was. This one, I love this episode. I think it was a great episode, but yeah, no, I totally think that it was the best call to have 10 Minute Sale.
And again, I just missed Harper. I don't like episodes that Harper's not in.
There's no Harper.
She's like the best character. She's the best person to play off of Alex.
You meet Gigi too, so there's a little bit of
wow,
so you actually go to school.
People in the first episode.
So the first episode, 10 minutes. Yeah, I mean, you go to school, you go to the 10 Minute Sale, you're in the Wizard's Lair, the sandwich shop.
Substation, yeah.
I mean, did they show the sandwich shop in this episode?
They did, yeah, because I remember commenting on how after flying lessons, Alex just walks through the substation with the magic carpet. I mean, obviously it just looks like a giant rug, but...
Did they even talk about the substation as far as, like, this is their family business, this is what they do? Like, if this had been the first episode, would that have properly even introduced the series? You don't get school.
That's a good point.
You don't get friends.
Yeah.
You don't even really get a proper... I mean, again, I know we just watched it, but we're already, like, almost 40 minutes in this episode. So, who knows if they actually talked about it. I can't remember, but, like, I don't feel like this would have been a proper setup for the series because... And I can't guarantee that they did a proper setup in Crazy 10 Minute Sale. But it just still feels like a better episode.
That's a good point. And, I mean, who knows? Maybe they never intended this to be the first. Just because it was the first one they filmed.
Very true.
They might not have intended it to be the first one. Maybe they always had it planned that way. But I know there's some reordering of these first few episodes because we've talked before about...
Oh, that really bad one. Oh, my gosh.
The like, big plot hole of... What's her name again? Miranda.
Lucy Hale, yeah.
Yeah, because she shows up in one of the first episodes... We're acting like we already know her, and then we meet her for the first time in a later episode. Yeah. It makes no sense. So that's what like makes me think that it's possible they could have reordered. But yeah, that's a good point. Is that it doesn't feel like they really established a whole lot.
Yeah, that was a definite error. I think mixing the episodes up like that.
That was silly.
But this, I think, was appropriate.
Yes,
moving the episodes
this was
around.
the right choice. I agree.
Yeah.
So, do we want to move on to our favorite quote?
Yes.
I'm a little worried that we have the same one because I saw you typing at the same time I was writing my notes.
Don't worry, I have a backup.
Okay, do you?
I have a backup. So,
do you want me to go first then?
In that case, go ahead and say yours, yes.
Okay. Mine comes from Jerry, which I feel like they often come from Jerry because he has some great one-liners. But he's talking to the kids and he says, I love you all equally, just not at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. That one is so good.
Was I right? Is that one you had written
down?
That
was one of mine, okay. Yes. That was one of mine. I like to have at least one or two just in case we do gravitate towards the same quote because, let's face it, these lines are fire.
Yeah.
And that one is a good one. I think that's one that, like, if parents were watching with their kids,
they would laugh.
The kids might be enjoying the hilarity and the magic and all that, but that's one that the parents would laugh at.
Right.
I love you all equally, just not at the same time.
Yeah.
When one of you
is
so good and one of you is bad, that was pretty funny. So definitely one of my favorite quotes.
What's your other one?
Mine, the one I'm going to go with here, just to make sure that we're having something different, was actually towards the end of the episode when Jerry is really happy that the lessons went well. He's got his arm around Alex, and he's like, someday you're going to grow up and you're going to fly wherever you want to go, and you're not going to be my little girl forever, and all this stuff. And at first she's smiling, but then she has this look on her face like she's kind of confused. And she goes, I don't want to be a grown-up. I just want to fly. And I don't think I can relate to anything more. Like, I'm like, yes, I don't want to be a grown-up either, but if I could fly, that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's my backup quote because I didn't see that coming. And that was one that, and I can quote almost all of these lines. I can quote a scene by myself. That was a line that I forgot. Yeah. Was her being like, no, I don't want to be an adult. I just want to fly.
It was great because Jerry had finally made peace in that moment of her, like, growing up and all this stuff. And then she was like, hold on.
No.
Like, I really just want to do this one thing. I actually don't want to be a grown-up. I'm not ready for that.
Absolutely.
So that was really funny. Great delivery by Selena.
Yep, another good episode. And then at the end, we actually get a little behind the scenes, a little...
oh, yeah, that was fun.
Little green screen action.
Of them doing the flying lessons.
And they show the actual take that they used for, watch where? Watch everywhere. Everywhere? How do I watch everywhere? Ah!
That's so good.
So that was cool.
I love that show.
You get a little behind the scenes. So, yeah, that is our breakdown of episode 6. I think this is the longest episode we've done.
Is it?
Perhaps since episode 1. I'm not sure.
Wow, I'm surprised.
Because usually we go for at least as long as the actual episode is itself. But this one, I think we've almost doubled.
Nice.
This one just packed a punch, I guess.
Well, hopefully that makes up a little bit for us being absent for so long. We are so sorry. So thanks if you've listened this long. Thank you so much for sticking around. Definitely share your thoughts in the comments below on this episode if you rewatched it with us. Maybe what your favorite quote was and what your thoughts are on whether this or Crazy 10-Minute Sale is a better first episode of the show. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And be sure to leave your comments. Follow us on Instagram as well. We like to post a little bit here and there on Instagram just to add more fun. So go ahead and subscribe. And then we will see you in the next episode, episode 7. I'm not even sure what it's called, but we will get there when we get there. In the meantime, thank you, everybody. Hope everybody has a great day, a great week, a great month, a great year, a great life. This is the Wizard's Lair podcast. Peace out.
Have a good one.